Hello, welcome to IDDTalks. My name is Anastasia Larina, and today we have a special guest joining us from France. Now is Pascal de Lima, Chief Economist at EcoCell Consulting Firm. Welcome to IDDTalks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me start with a question about Donald Trump's tariff policy. 47th President of the United States of America imposed tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China. How do you think Trump's trade policy will impact the EU economy as a whole?
Yes, of course, Trump's trade policies, particularly tariffs on European goods, could significantly disrupt the European Union economy. With higher tariffs, of course, on key exports such as automobiles, wine, and luxury goods, and this would reduce the European competitiveness, of course, in the US market, and it could lead to lower revenues and potential job losses in affected industries. So to summarize, we could say that the European Union, of course, could reply with its own tariff, but the risk is, of course, an escalating trade tensions, reducing overall trade volume.
Last year, French economy and political system faces some challenges. What sectors in France will be more affected by new Donald Trump's tariff policy?
Well, the first sector is, of course, France luxury, agricultural too, and aerospace sectors that would be hit hardest by tariffs. And of course, policymakers should seek trade diversification, strengthen internal markets, and negotiate with the US, of course, while preparing European Union countermeasures. That's one of the risks.
And how should the policymakers in Paris respond to this crisis?
Well, of course, the European Union could reply with its own tariffs, escalating trade tensions and reducing overall trade volume. But small and medium-sized companies in export-dependent countries like Germany and France would be particularly vulnerable, even if we have an escalate. That's the main problem. So the problem is the uncertainty now with these tariffs, these American potential tariffs.
That's very interesting. How do you think could Trump's new policy, its trade policy, its tariffs policy, its energy policy, make the EU countries to think about cooperation, more effective cooperation with China, let's say, or it could be too politically risky?
A Trump presidency could make, of course, European Union-China economic ties more attractive, particularly if US and European Union's relations deteriorate. However, deepening ties with China is politically sensitive. Why? Because first, the human rights concerns, of course. Second, the security risks, because China's technological and strategic ambition is real too. And the last one is that the European Union's existing trade disputes with China can impact an escalating system with anti-subsidy measures, and tech restrictions. So to summarize, a Trump presidency might push the European Union to engage more with China economically, but political and security risks would limit the extent of this shift.
And how do you assess the US LNG exports in ensuring Europe's energy security?
Well, the first topic about that is, of course, the liquefied natural gas, because the US liquefied natural gas exports have become a crucial part of the Europeans' energy security, especially after the reduction of Russian gas imports. So the key factors is one, the diversification to reduce reliance on Russian energy. The second is price volatility, because US liquefied natural gas, of course, is subject to global market fluctuation, making it more expensive at times. And finally, some European Union countries lack adequate liquefied natural gases terminals. So the infrastructure are limited in Europe, you know. So to summarize, we could say that the US liquefied natural gas is vital for Europe's energy security, but helping reduce reliance on Russia. But price volatility and infrastructure challenges limits its effectiveness.
Is France push for greater economic sovereignty within the EU, or it's constrained by structural economic ties with other members of the European Union? Is it possible to have more independent policy for France?
Yes, it's a very good question. France, of course, as you know, advocates it's for greater economic sovereignty within the European Union, focusing on reducing dependence on external powers like US tech, Chinese supply chain. However, there are structural constraints, effectively. The first one is the European Union integration, because France must align with the other country from the European Union. So it is not alone, France, of course, and it limits the unilateral action. That's the first point. And the second point is that we have, of course, industrial and technology gaps, because dependence on US and Asian tech, for example, like semiconductors and artificial intelligence. So we depend a lot on US and Asia too. And the last one is the financial constraints, because France public debt limit large-scale investment in strategic sectors. So to summarize, we could say that France's goal of economic sovereignty faces structural constraints like European Union regulation, tech dependency, and fiscal limits, making full autonomy challenging, of course.
More on US foreign policy under Trump's administration. France signals sending troops to Greenland if Denmark requests. What political consequences it may have for the bilateral relations between France and the United States?
If France deploys to Greenland troops at Denmark's request, well, I think the question is theoretical. I hope so, but the move could have significant geopolitical consequences. The first is very stupid for France, but it's tensions with the US, of course, which is a very, very important partner today. So the US views Groenland as strategically critical, so it increased the tensions with the US. And of course, the NATO frictions too, because it could raise questions about the European military independence and relation with the NATO. The Russia's reaction too, that could provoke Russia countermeasures in the Arctic, why not? And finally, Beijing, the China's interest as increasing economic interests in Greenland too, in mining and infrastructure. So it can create also an escalating system too at this point of view.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining our talks today.
No, thank you.